Massive unidentified radar anomaly detected over Alabama. On the afternoon of June 26, 2015, at approximately 3:48 in the afternoon, weather radar systems across central Alabama recorded something highly unusual. A massive anomaly stretching across thousands of square miles. This strange formation appeared suddenly, lingering for about 20 minutes, before vanishing just as quickly as it had emerged. The anomaly did not resemble any known meteorological event, leaving meteorologists, researchers, and the public alike grasping for answers. What followed only deepened the mystery. Shortly after the radar image began circulating, eyewitness reports and social media posts emerged, showing large plumes of black smoke rising from Redstone Arsenal, a well-known US Army post in Huntsville, Alabama. The timing was too close to be considered a coincidence. Redstone Arsenal has long been associated with advanced military research and development, but the nature of the day's activity quickly drew public concern. Military officials acknowledged that testing was underway at the base and stated that the smoke seen by residents was a result of those operations. However, they declined to offer any specifics regarding the nature of the test, citing security protocols. Their response, while acknowledging the activity, left many feeling uneasy due to its lack of transparency. In an era where information spreads rapidly and public trust can be fragile, the vague explanation did little to reassure nearby communities. Residents and social media users began raising questions not only about the radar anomaly, but also about potential safety risks. With no clear answers, speculation filled the void. Some asked whether the testing involved chemicals, and if so, whether those substances could pose a risk to public health. Others questioned whether the radar interference was caused by experimental technology or even classified aerial operations. The general consensus among local residents and observers was that the public should be more thoroughly informed, especially when the consequences of such tests could impact their health or environment. While no official evacuation was issued, some community members expressed concern about remaining near an area that could potentially expose them to unknown risks. Without knowing the specifics of the test or what exactly caused the radar anomaly, individuals felt they were left to make decisions without adequate information. Some even debated temporarily relocating until more clarity was provided. The incident has sparked broader conversations about the level of communication between military institutions and the civilian population, especially in cases involving unexplainable activity. As radar technology becomes more sensitive and capable of detecting even minor disturbances, anomalies like the one in Alabama are likely to draw increased attention. In this case, the combination of a visual radar signature, visible smoke, and official silence has created a sense of unresolved tension in the community. To this day, no detailed explanation has been given for what occurred at Redstone Arsenal during the anomaly, leaving many to wonder if the true nature of the event will ever be disclosed. Until then, the June 26th radar anomaly remains one of the most compelling unexplained incidents in recent memory for the region. Mysterious update on the Paraca skulls. The Paraca skulls of Peru have continued to baffle researchers and archaeologists for nearly a century, and recent developments have only deepened the mystery. These ancient remains, discovered in 1928 by Peruvian archaeologist Julio Tello, have sparked global fascination due to their extraordinarily elongated shapes and unusual anatomical features. Found in the Paracas region on Peru's southern coast, over 300 skulls were unearthed in a massive burial site, many of which were dated to be between 2,000 and 3,000 years old. While cranial deformities practices are known in various cultures, where infant skulls were deliberately shaped using binding techniques, researchers examining the Paraca skulls began to suspect that more than external manipulation was at play. One of the most striking updates that has surfaced is the discovery that many of these skulls lack a sagittal suture, a key structural feature found in all normal human skulls. This suture connects the two parietal bones at the top of the skull, and its absence presents a serious challenge to the assumption that the skulls were shaped purely through external pressure. L.A. Marzulli, a researcher who has studied the skulls extensively, identified several anomalies that set the Paracas skulls apart from standard human anatomy. Among these were significantly larger eye sockets, more prominent cheekbones, and skulls that weighed as much as 60% more than an average human skull. One of the more critical observations was the unusual placement and size of the foramen magnum, the opening at the base of the skull through which the spinal cord passes. In the Paraca skulls, this feature was found closer to the back of the skull and smaller in diameter than what is typically seen in human anatomy. After further examination, researchers noticed that many of the skulls did not show any sign of the sagittal suture. While this could sometimes occur as a rare genetic anomaly, the frequency with which it appeared in the Paraca's collection led researchers to consider the possibility that this may represent a genetic trait rather than an isolated case of cranial modification. In addition to anatomical studies, DNA analysis was conducted to determine whether there was anything unusual about the genetic composition of the individuals. Hair and bone powder were extracted from the base of the skulls near the foramen magnum to reduce the risk of contamination. The researchers took extra precautions, wearing protective clothing and sending the samples to 3 independent laboratories in the United States and Canada. The labs were not informed of the origin of the samples, allowing the results to remain as unbiased as possible. What came back from the labs was unexpected. One of the samples, taken from hair, showed a DNA sequence that had not been previously documented in known human genetic databases. While the other 2 samples were identified as mostly human in origin, they were traced to regions in Eastern and Western Europe. An unusual finding considering the skulls were discovered in Peru, a region historically isolated from Europe prior to the age of exploration. This combination of genetic anomalies, unusual skull morphology, and missing anatomical features, such as the sagittal suture, has led to growing intrigue and speculation about the origin of the Paraca's people. While some suggest that these skulls may represent a now extinct branch of early humans with unique genetic traits, others have offered more speculative theories, ranging from ancient migration to the involvement of unknown lineages. Despite the ongoing debate, the Paraca skulls remain one of the most puzzling archaeological mysteries in South America. The absence of the sagittal suture in many of the skulls is particularly significant, as it challenges the prevailing notion that the elongation was purely cultural. Instead, it opens the door to the possibility of natural genetic divergence, a population with distinct biological traits, or even links to long-forgotten civilizations. As technology continues to improve and more detailed genetic sequencing becomes available, researchers hope to better understand the lineage and origin of these individuals. For now, the Paraca skulls continue to raise more questions than answers, offering a rare glimpse into a mysterious chapter of human, or possibly non-human, history. The mysterious case of Martin Rodriguez. The mysterious and haunting case of Martin Rodriguez, often referred to as one of the Tordesillas boys, remains one of Spain's most compelling and lesser-known UFO encounters. Though little discussed outside of Spain, this extraordinary event has captured the attention of UFO researchers due to its lasting physical and neurological consequences. The incident not only involved multiple witnesses, but led to a lifetime of medical challenges for Martin, including 14 brain surgeries. It remains one of the few cases where an alleged encounter with an unidentified object left physical traces both on the environment and on a human body. The event took place on the evening of October 1, 1977, on the outskirts of the town of Tordesillas, Spain. Martin Rodriguez and his friend Fernando Caravelos, both 7 years old at the time, were playing a game of hide-and-seek near an abandoned farm building. Wanting to find a secluded hiding spot, the 2 boys ventured toward an old corral they had explored before. Knowing that people sometimes used the area as a temporary shelter, they decided to check if it was empty by tossing a stone through a broken window. What they heard next was completely unexpected. A loud metallic clang, like the sound of a heavy steel container being struck. Curiosity led the 2 boys to investigate further. Inside the dilapidated structure, they discovered something that neither of them could explain. A metallic, drop-shaped object, supported by 3 zigzag legs, with circular windows and a strange nozzle-like feature on one side. Steam seemed to surround it, along with what looked like floating soap bubbles. The object emitted a low-pitched, irritating hum, unlike anything the boys had encountered before. As they stood frozen, the craft began to vibrate and rise. Fernando instinctively jumped back and tried to pull Martin with him, but Martin seemed paralyzed. A bright beam of light shot from the object, and struck Martin directly in the chest. Fernando fled in fear, running to get help. When they returned, they found Martin lying on the ground, semi-conscious and unresponsive. Martin was taken home, but his condition did not improve. He didn't speak. His skin turned pale and yellow, and his pupils were abnormally dilated. His parents, desperate for answers, visited the corral and found scorched earth marked by 3 triangular impressions. The area also had a strong smell of sulfur. Samples of the soil were collected and years later examined by local journalist and UFO researcher Iker Jimenez. Analysis suggested that the soil had been subjected to extreme temperatures, close to 600 degrees, lending further credibility to the physical reality of the event. What followed for Martin was a life marked by recurring health complications. Not long after the encounter, he began suffering from persistent stomach pain, vision problems, and fainting spells. He was admitted to a hospital in Valladolid and diagnosed with hydrocephalus. In total, Martin would undergo 14 surgeries, including 13 procedures that required opening his skull. The condition seemed to emerge following his experience in the corral and left doctors puzzled. Despite the debilitating effects on his health, something unusual began to develop in Martin. After the incident, his ability to understand and retain complex information significantly improved. Before the event, he had struggled in school, particularly with subjects like mathematics. Following the encounter, Martin reportedly developed an advanced capacity for solving logical problems and retaining new information, an intellectual shift that his doctors and family could not fully explain. Though many dismissed the incident as coincidence or a misunderstanding, the consistency of the eyewitness accounts and the lingering physical evidence made it difficult to ignore. Fernando and the other eyewitnesses maintained their story, and Martin's lifelong medical records continued to point to a major turning point in his health, beginning at the time of the event. In later years, Martin appeared on the television program Cuarto Milenio, hosted by Iker Jimenez, where he shared his experience in more detail. Jimenez also published the story in his book Enigma Sin Resolver, highlighting the strangeness and depth of the Tordesillas case. The television program reignited public interest and brought more attention to what some believe is one of the most compelling UFO encounters involving a direct biological impact on a witness. Comparisons have been drawn to other well-documented cases of UFO encounters resulting in physical symptoms. One example is the 1967 incident near Falcon Lake in Canada, where Stefan Michalak suffered burns after encountering a disc-shaped craft. Other declassified reports from government archives, obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, describe similar injuries, including radiation burns, neurological symptoms, and unexplained medical conditions following close encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. The timing and circumstances surrounding Martin Rodriguez's symptoms remain suspicious. The sudden onset, combined with the physical traces found at the scene and the consistency in witness reports, continue to baffle those who have studied the case. The Tordesillas incident is more than just a UFO story. It is a deeply human account of how an unexplained encounter changed a young boy's life forever. For Martin Rodriguez, what happened that October evening left both visible and invisible marks that would follow him for decades. Whether one believes in extraterrestrial involvement or sees it as a yet unexplained natural event, the case continues to captivate researchers and serves as a powerful reminder that some mysteries remain far beyond our current understanding. The strange case of rugby player Levi Davis, who disappeared without a trace. Levi Davis, a gifted and charismatic young man, captured public attention not only for his accomplishments on the rugby field, but also for his candidness, creativity, and openness about personal struggles. Born in the United Kingdom and rising through the ranks of professional rugby, Levi became known for his athleticism, vibrant personality, and musical talent. At just 25 years old, he had already achieved several major milestones in both sports and entertainment, which made his sudden and unexplained disappearance in late 2022 all the more troubling. Levi began his professional rugby career with Bath United in 2017 and made his first senior appearance in 2019. In the years that followed, he played for teams such as the Ealing Trailfinders and Worthing Raiders. Levi's creativity extended beyond sports. In late 2019, he appeared on Celebrity X Factor, showcasing his musical talent and igniting a passion for performing. Under the stage name Leader, he released a debut single titled With Me in September 2022, with plans to continue releasing music. His growing interest in songwriting and production led him to travel to Ibiza in October 2022 to collaborate with his friend Richard Squire on new music. Initially, Levi's time in Ibiza appeared to be uneventful. He arrived on October 17th and spent time working on material for his album. However, on October 28th, Levi told Richard that he was heading into town. The following day, Levi informed Richard that he had boarded a boat to Barcelona to meet some friends. Although Richard expressed concern, Levi reassured him that he would call once he arrived. That call never came. While on the boat, Levi sent a video to his mother showing the scenic view and expressing excitement about traveling across Europe. Later that night, he sent her another video of a singer performing in a bar. He also contacted a friend named Mike Guida just after midnight on October 30th, leaving a voice note describing how beautiful Barcelona was and how creatively inspired he felt. This voice note was the last known contact anyone had with him. When days passed with no word from Levi, Richard contacted Levi's family and friends. On November 8th, Levi was officially reported missing. Authorities quickly reviewed CCTV footage and found Levi leaving the old Irish pub in Barcelona at around 10 in the evening on October 29th. The footage showed him turning left outside the bar, heading away from the ferry port. His final phone signal was traced to the port area in the early hours of October 30th. His phone and bank accounts have shown no activity since that night. On November 19th, Levi's passport was found near a cargo container in the same port area. In February 2023, a new and unsettling element emerged in the case. Levi's family's private investigator recovered a video that Levi had recorded and posted to his Instagram before deleting it. In the 15-minute clip, Levi described being blackmailed. He appeared deeply distressed and claimed that he felt his life was in danger. He said he had reported these allegations to police, although no formal confirmation has been issued regarding whether such a report was filed or acted upon. Levi's friend Mike confirmed that they had previously discussed these allegations. At the time, Mike believed Levi had spoken while under the influence, but the seriousness in Levi's demeanor when posting the video caused him concern. Others close to Levi encouraged him to delete the post, which he eventually did. Further confusion was added in February when a friend claimed that one of their messages to Levi, sent in December, had been marked as read. This raised questions about whether Levi's phone had been accessed after his disappearance, although police have not confirmed any new findings. Additionally, reports surfaced of unusual activity on Levi's Instagram account, including the removal of dozens of contacts. In April 2023, Spanish authorities informed the family of a new theory that Levi may have fallen into the water and drowned. On the night he disappeared, a cruise liner reported seeing a man in the port shouting for help in English. The Coast Guard launched a search, but found no one. Police now suspect that this individual may have been Levi, although no conclusive evidence has been provided, and his case remains open. Levi Davis's disappearance has left a deep void for those who knew and loved him. A man full of promise, energy, and talent simply vanished, leaving behind a trail of questions. As of now, Levi remains missing, and his family continues to seek answers and resolution. Couple mysteriously vanishes. On July 27, 1973, 16-year-old Mitchell Weiser and 15-year-old Benita Bonnie Bickwit were last seen standing along State Route 97 in Narrowsburg, New York. With sleeping bags and a homemade cardboard sign reading Watkins Glen, the young couple planned to hitchhike to one of the largest music events in history, Summer Jam at Watkins Glen. The concert was expected to draw hundreds of thousands of people and featured legendary bands such as the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers Band. What was meant to be a memorable summer adventure soon turned into one of New York's most puzzling missing persons cases. Decades later, no one knows for certain whether they ever even arrived at the concert. Mitchell Fred Weiser was born in 1956 and had a passion for photography and baseball. He was an intelligent, kind-hearted teenager who deeply admired the Grateful Dead, even naming his dog after one of their songs, Casey Jones. Benita Mara Bickwit born in 1958, was described as sweet, bright, and independent. She met Mitchell at John Dewey High School in Brooklyn, a school known for its progressive curriculum and high-achieving students. Their bond grew quickly, and by the summer of 1973, they had been dating for about a year. Mitchell was working a summer internship at a photography studio in Coney Island, while Bonnie had taken a job as a babysitter at Camp Well Met in Narrowsburg. The job, however, came with long hours and little time off. As the date for Summer Jam approached, Mitchell had purchased tickets for himself and a friend named Larry, but when Larry's mother refused to let her son attend, Mitchell invited Bonnie instead. She was thrilled, especially since the job at camp had become increasingly taxing. When Bonnie asked her employers for time off to attend the concert, they denied her request. Frustrated, she quit. She briefly returned home while her family was vacationing, where she retrieved $80 she had been saving for a bicycle. Her family had no idea about her plans until later, when a letter surfaced in which she wrote of the camp, the freedom she felt there, and her hope that she would be granted more independence once she returned home. She also expressed a strong desire to travel, an ambition that would take on an eerie significance in the years to come. On July 26th, Mitchell traveled by bus to Narrowsburg, and the couple spent the night at the camp. The next morning, they were driven by a well-met employee to the town of Narrowsburg, where they were dropped off with their sign and sleeping bags, ready to begin their hitchhiking journey to the concert. That roadside moment was the last confirmed sighting of either of them. When Mitchell failed to return home following the concert, his family began to worry. His father and sister traveled to Camp Well Met looking for him, and learned that neither Mitchell nor Bonnie had returned. Meanwhile, Bonnie's family came back from vacation to find out that their daughter was missing. They were contacted by someone from the camp and quickly joined the Wisers in filing missing persons reports. However, law enforcement initially treated the case as a runaway situation. Camp staff had mentioned that Mitchell and Bonnie had exchanged rings and were engaged, reinforcing the theory that they had eloped and would resurface when they were ready. This assumption proved costly, as the first crucial days and weeks after the disappearance passed without meaningful investigation. Both families took matters into their own hands. They printed and distributed missing person flyers across the country and wrote letters to newspapers and police departments, hoping to spark awareness and generate leads. Despite their tireless efforts, no substantial evidence ever emerged to confirm the whereabouts of Mitchell or Bonnie. Over the years, there were sporadic reports of potential sightings. One account claimed the couple had been seen on a bus headed to Dover, New Hampshire, but this lead was never verified. A pharmacist in Manhattan believed he had filled a prescription for Bonnie, yet this also turned out to be a dead end. The most haunting moment came in 1987, when Mitchell's father, now living in Arizona, received a collect phone call from someone claiming to be Bonnie. He accepted the charges, but by the time the operator returned to the line, the caller had already hung up. The identity of the caller was never confirmed, and while some believed it may have been Bonnie reaching out, others feared it was a cruel prank. The mystery remained unsolved, and the pain endured. Years passed, but the families never gave up. The Wisers even paid to have their phone number listed in directories long after they moved across the country, in case Mitchell ever tried to reach them. Despite their heartbreak, both families held out hope that one day they would learn the truth. The disappearance of Mitchell Weiser and Bonita Bickwit remains one of the oldest active missing teen cases in the United States. Their story continues to haunt those who remember them and serves as a poignant reminder of how quickly a moment of youthful excitement can be swallowed by the unknown. Even after all these years, the hope for resolution lives on, carried by friends, siblings, and the distant possibility that the truth may one day surface. The Mystery Woman. In August 1954, the top of Mount Palomar in the United States hosted a remarkable convention that featured details on mysterious flying aircrafts, detailing eyewitness encounters, and sharing knowledge about sightings that no one knew about. The event took place at an altitude of over 1,800 meters, and different members in the community gathered to exchange ideas and share experiences about these strange phenomena. The convention was highly memorable, and it attracted participants from different parts of the country who were keen to learn and engage in discussions surrounding the convention was attended by over 1,000 individuals from various walks of life, including journalists from all over the globe, FBI agents, witnesses, and even individuals who were merely curious. All of the people who were contacted shared their distinct experiences. At the conclusion of the initial day's proceedings, there was a commotion among the attendees as they observed the unanticipated presence of an attractive woman accompanied by a duo of men. One of the men had glasses, and all three individuals were of fair complexion. The woman distinguished herself with her blonde hair and strikingly black and intense eyes. Further standout features included unusual cranial formation and an unusual bone mark on her forehead. During the convention, a journalist from Brazil was in attendance and conducted an interview with a group of individuals who signed the guest book. According to the journalist's research, the woman in the group was named Dolores Barrios, and she identified herself as being a fashion designer from New York. During the meeting the next day, Martins managed to take a photograph of the woman, which surprised her and led to her immediately leaving the area with her two friends. Oddly enough, moments after the three individuals left and ran for the nearby forest, those in attendance reported that a mysterious aircraft was seen taking off and leaving the area at incredible speeds. However, due to the speed in which the aircraft was traveling, the witnesses in attendance reported that they were unable to capture any photographic evidence of the event. Despite thorough investigation, no individuals have come forward to claim knowledge or identification of the unusual individuals depicted in the photographs. As of today, it remains a mystery who they are, what their purpose was, and why they left the event in a hurry. Jerome of Sandy Cove. In September of 1863, an unidentified man was found on the beach of Sandy Cove and given the name Jerome. This man's true identity remains a mystery to this day. The discovery of Jerome sparked curiosity and questions about how he ended up where he did and where he originated from. The individual in question was discovered with amputated legs, leaving him unable to stand. When questioned by locals, he provided limited responses, perhaps indicating a lack of proficiency in both English and French languages. He was requested to reveal his name, but his response was unclear, as he muttered something which sounded like Jerome. Consequently, he was addressed by this name. An 8-year-old boy named George Colin Albright discovered him in the village of Digby Neck, and he was later taken to the Albright family's home to receive proper care and attention. The boy found him in a state of ill health and decided to take it upon himself to bring him back to health. Jerome had undergone a surgical procedure where both of his legs were amputated above the knees, and the incisions showed that the surgeon performing the amputation was highly skilled. It is evident by some that Jerome had lost both of his legs at the same time, but as of right now, researchers are unsure of how this happened. When the man was discovered, it was observed that the stumps on his body were only partially healed and still covered by bandages. In addition, he was experiencing the unpleasant effects of being exposed to cold weather for an extended period of time. Visitors to his sick bed were interested in learning more about him, but were surprised to discover that he was unable to comprehend French, Latin, Italian, or Spanish. These shortcomings highlighted his limited linguistic abilities, which impacted his interactions with foreign partners. According to witnesses, the man in question was observed to be avoiding the attention of the curious onlookers, and when faced with unwanted guests, he growled like a dog to scare them away. The observers also noticed that the man seemed to have hands that were too soft to belong to a manual laborer, and he was described as having a Mediterranean appearance. The family who had found him had a hard time supporting another member, which resulted in him being passed from one household to another. Finally, the Baptist community of Digby Neck suggested that he was a Catholic, and so subsequently sent him to the nearby French community of Mettingen. This experience of being shifted from family to family had a significant impact on Jerome's life. The government then got involved and made the decision to approve a fixed sum of $2 per week to provide financial support to Jerome. After the community persistently attempted to break his aloofness, Jerome was compelled to reside with Jean Nicola, a multilingual Corsican defector. Nicola was unable to engage him in conversation, but Jerome remained residing in the household of Nicola for an additional 7 years. During his stay, he became a beloved companion of the female members of the household. Soon after the passing of Juliette Nicolas, her husband relocated to Europe, while Jerome found shelter with Didier and Zabeth Como near Mettingen. Jerome passed away on the 15th of April, 1912. Decades passed, and various individuals claimed they knew who Jerome was. Many believed the man to be Italian, perhaps a mutilated nobleman who kept his silence to save himself from political rivals. Another theory was that he was an Italian naval officer, injured on board and cruelly abandoned by his crewmates. Those who cared for him claimed he would sometimes utter Colombo and Trieste, further proving that he was Italian. The mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit. The Green Children of Woolpit is a legend that dates back to the 12th century and is believed to have originated in the town of Woolpit in Suffolk, England. The legend tells the story of two children, a brother and a sister, who were found wandering in a field outside the town of Woolpit. They were strange-looking children with green skin and spoke a language that no one in the town could understand. The children were taken in by a local landowner, Sir Richard Decane, who tried to feed them with bread and water. However, the children refused to eat any food except for green beans. They appeared to be in good health, but they refused to eat anything else other than green beans. Over time, the children began to adapt to their new surroundings and eventually learned to speak English. They told their hosts that they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, which was a world of perpetual twilight. They claimed that the sun never shone in their world and that everything was always green. As the children grew older, their skin gradually lost its green color, and they began to eat regular food. The boy became sick and passed away, while the girl adapted to her new life and eventually married a man from King's Lynn. She reportedly retained her greenish hue for the rest of her life. The legend of the Green Children of Woolpit has been the subject of much speculation and debate over the centuries, with some suggesting that the children were actually advanced beings or creatures from another dimension, while others believe that they were the survivors of an ancient civilization or the descendants of a race of green-skinned people. However, most historians and scholars believe that the story of the Green Children is likely a combination of folklore and historical fact. The green color of their skin may have been the result of a rare genetic condition known as chlorosis, which causes the skin to turn greenish-yellow due to a lack of iron in the blood. Alternatively, the children may have been suffering from malnutrition or exposure to an unknown substance that caused their skin to turn green. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit has been retold many times over the centuries and has become a popular legend in English folklore. Despite the many theories and speculations surrounding the story, the true origins of the Green Children remain a mystery. A few months ago, it was reported that sheep across the world were observed walking around in circles, and people have now said that the phenomenon has just started up again. Due to this strange behavior, it's caused some to suggest that animals may be sensing something. Interestingly, some animals have been observed to have the ability to detect earthquakes before they occur. This is believed to be due to their heightened sensitivity to changes in their environment, such as vibrations or electromagnetic fields. One animal that is known for its ability to detect earthquakes is the common toad. Researchers have found that toads will often leave their breeding sites and move to higher ground several days before an earthquake occurs. Similarly, other studies have shown that certain species of fish, snakes, and even domesticated dogs and cats have exhibited unusual behavior prior to an earthquake. Scientists have said that not all animals have this ability, and more research is needed to fully understand the mechanisms behind this phenomenon. The United States Geological Survey said the following about this phenomenon. Evidence abounds of animals, fish, birds, reptiles, and insects exhibiting strange behavior anywhere from weeks to seconds before an earthquake. However, consistent and reliable behavior prior to seismic events and a mechanism explaining how it could work still eludes us. End quote. One person commented on social media saying that they have a koi pond, and she observed her fish swimming around in circles for hours. This event happened in early March, and she said that a few days later, the region where she lives was hit by a 4-magnitude earthquake. China is located in an area of the world that is particularly prone to earthquakes due to its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire. The Pacific Ring of Fire is a region that encircles the Pacific Ocean and is characterized by high levels of seismic activity and volcanic eruptions. China is also situated on the boundary between the Eurasian Plate and the Indian Plate, which are two of the Earth's tectonic plates. The collision of these two plates has created a complex system of fault lines that runs through China, resulting in frequent earthquakes. While earthquakes are common in China, the country has implemented measures to mitigate their impact. This includes seismic monitoring systems, earthquake-resistant building codes, and public education campaigns on earthquake preparedness. Oddly enough, this strange behavior was observed a few months back, when sheep were seen walking around in circles. It was reported that hundreds of sheep had been observed walking in circles for over 12 days. Not long after the first report was made, others came forward and said that sheep were observed doing the same thing across different countries, with reports coming in from the United Kingdom and Mongolia, with local farmers confused as to why the sheep were doing this for such a long period of time, with one farmer saying that it happens every so often, but has never lasted more than an hour. The cause of this strange behavior is still not known. It's known that China is often hit by earthquakes, and at the time it caused some to suggest that perhaps the sheep could feel something happening. The United States Geological Survey said the following: "The earliest reference we have to unusual animal behavior prior to a significant earthquake is from Greece in 373 BC. Rats, weasels, snakes, and centipedes reportedly left their homes and headed for safety several days before a destructive earthquake. Anecdotal evidence abounds of animals, fish, birds, reptiles, and insects exhibiting strange behavior anywhere from weeks to seconds before an earthquake. Most but not all scientists pursuing this mystery are in China or Japan. An earthquake forecast was made in China several decades ago, based on small earthquakes and unusual animal activity. Many people chose to sleep outside of their homes and thus were spared when the main earthquake indeed occurred and caused widespread destruction. However, usually no large earthquake follows this type of seismic activity, and unfortunately, many earthquakes are preceded by no precursory events whatsoever." End quote. It's for this reason that people worry when they see animals acting like this, with residents fearing that a big earthquake could hit the region within the next few days. As mentioned, for centuries there have been accounts of animals acting strange before an earthquake devastates a region. A few years back, scientists came forward and said that they have filmed the behavior of wild animals prior to a quake and believe this could be documented evidence of animals behaving differently just prior to an earthquake. The researchers were studying birds in Peru and found that days before an earthquake hit, the birds ran for shelter, with the team suggesting that the animals running for cover may be linked to airborne ions. As of right now, scientists and animal experts have said that there's several reasons why animals may walk in circles, saying that some animals, particularly those with poor eyesight, may use circling as a means of navigating. By walking in circles, they may be able to detect changes in their environment, such as the location of food or water sources, and orient themselves more accurately. Certain animals, especially those in captivity or under stress, may exhibit repetitive behaviors, including circling. This behavior may be a result of boredom, anxiety, or a lack of stimulation. In some cases, animals may walk in circles due to neurological disorders, such as vestibular disease. This condition affects the inner ear, which can cause disorientation and loss of balance. Injury. Animals may also walk in circles if they have sustained an injury to their limbs or other parts of their body. This behavior may be an attempt to alleviate pain or discomfort. It's important to note that circling behavior in animals should be investigated and monitored by a veterinarian, as it can sometimes be a symptom of a more serious underlying condition. The United States government has acknowledged the existence of unidentified flying objects, but their stance and level of knowledge about them is not entirely clear. Back in June 2021, the United States government released a report on unidentified aerial phenomena, which is the new term used to describe these mysterious aircrafts. The report, issued by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, stated that there were 144 reports of unidentified aerial phenomena from 2004 to 2021, with only one of them having an identifiable explanation. As of right now, though, officials haven't released any more information on this topic, leading amateur researchers to suggest that they're not giving away all of the answers and that they're holding on to substantial evidence which could prove once and for all what these objects are. Going back a few years ago, a man overheard two security guards talking, and they detailed that in the early hours of the morning, something was being transported out of Edwards Air Force Base. He overheard the guards say that the object would be transported at around 1:30 in the morning, and so he decided to wait in his car to see what the Air Force Base was transporting. The man reported that in the distance he could see a police car with its lights on, and behind it were several other police cars escorting a large truck. The man said that he couldn't believe what he was seeing, and that the object on the back of the truck appeared to be in the shape of a disc. Many said that the man was brave for doing this, and that he may have caught genuine proof of a mysterious aircraft. Although the man was able to follow the military guards and capture proof of this encounter, others said that he was lucky not to have been spotted, and suggested that if he was caught by officers, then he may have been given a prison sentence. Oddly enough, although the man was able to capture clear photographs of an aircraft in the shape of a disc, some online users came forward and said that it wasn't an unidentified aircraft, and was actually an aircraft that belonged to the United States Navy. The aircraft in question is called the X-46B. According to military websites, the project was funded under a $635 million contract, which was awarded to the United States Navy in 2007. By January 2012, the total program cost had grown to over $800 million. The aircraft certainly looks futuristic, but according to military insiders, the program had a rough start, and not long after being awarded the program, it was soon scrapped in favor of a less stealthy aircraft. Interestingly, various military bases have been home to strange encounters, which have led former military workers to come forward with their strange encounters. One such event happened at the Edwards Air Force Base. Edwards Air Force Base sits amid the dusty plains of the Mojave Desert, home to the Earth's hottest place, Death Valley, where temperatures fluctuate from scorching hot in the summer to freezing cold in the winter. The desert is a hostile and dangerous place, but it's also one of America's most fascinating places for a number of reasons. Geographically, the area is unique. Furthermore, the first space shuttle mission, Columbia, landed at Edwards on its return to Earth in April 1981. However, there's a reason much more relevant to this video as to why we're taking a look at the base. Edwards Air Force Base, by location and the majority of its purpose, is just a regular military installation, but it also serves a joint purpose. The base essentially controls activities at the nearby Homey Airport, an area that in recent years has become synonymous with strange activity. One would imagine that some strange things must be seen late at night, that far out in the desert, surrounded by nothing but open air and dusty expanses. One night in 1965, an air traffic controller at the base had a strange encounter with what he believed was an aircraft in the shape of a disc. In 1965, Edwards, like US Air Force bases all over the country, were on high alert for suspicious activity in the skies. Tension with the Soviet Union was mounting, and the most shocking thing that radar controllers in the Nevada desert could have seen back then would have been a Russian aircraft. However, the objects that appeared above the base, apparently flying very high and very fast, appeared in sets of 7 to 12 and looked like pulsating lights against the night sky. However, the controllers couldn't be sure of what they'd seen, and as a precaution, a fighter jet was scrambled from the nearby George Air Force Base. Yet, the strange lights continued to climb into the night sky, far outpacing the fighter jet. Controllers noted that the craft seemed to simply fade away into space, becoming one of the stars. The thing about the Edwards incident is that the eyewitness reports were credible, so the crew at the base most definitely did see something that night. It's just not clear what it was that they saw. We don't know what sort of threat, or how bad a threat these mysterious aircrafts posed, but when the evidence was released only about 15 years ago, people realized that the government had gone to great lengths at the time to cover up these sorts of incidents. These mysterious aircrafts have been a thing of immense fascination across the world for thousands of years, but Americans were amongst the first to take a continued interest in the phenomena. And when multiple soldiers, those who we trust with keeping us safe, are left confused and ultimately convinced by their own sightings, you can't help but think that there might be something else out there. These are just a few examples of what military officials have encountered. and there's definitely no shortage of these types of stories. It's interesting when we hear about these types of sightings that have been witnessed by everyday people, but when military officials come forward and share their stories, they seem more credible. This is because these are the people that work around these areas on a daily basis, so they are used to seeing military equipment on a daily basis. No matter what your thoughts surrounding these incidents, one thing that can't be ignored is that there are only two possible conclusions to make when it comes to repeated UFO sightings: either a truth within the story or false. The United Kingdom is no stranger to these mysterious aircrafts, and since the early 1980s, there have been various mass sightings of strange aircrafts that don't match vehicles such as planes or helicopters. Described as one of the strangest aerial sightings ever made, bordering on the theory of being a possible religious experience, is that of the well-recorded incident referred to by researchers as the Devon flying cross sighting. While officers Roger Willey and Clifford Walcott were making their way back to the police station, driving from Holsworthy to Hatherley at around 4 a.m, they were diverted from their investigation when they spotted a series of floating lights in the sky that seemed to group together and take on the shape of a cross. According to the two officers, the sighting took place on the 24th of October back in 1967 and have yet to find an adequate explanation for what they encountered. The now retired officers recounted the following statement surrounding the incident. "We were making our way back between Holsworthy and Hatherley when we saw this unusual bright light in the sky. We both registered that we'd seen something. It was something we couldn't logically account for. It was something that I hadn't seen before, I haven't seen since, and something that nobody can explain exactly what it was." The two officers described the craft as a bright object in the shape of a cross, hovering slightly above the height of the tree line roughly 40 meters from where their car was parked. Unsure of what action would be most appropriate to take, the two officers began to pursue the lights, which began to pulsate for about 15 minutes while flying away from their car, still following the path of the road at about the speed of 80 miles per hour. It was at this point that the officers got a clear look at the lights, only to notice that something was off about their appearance. The two officers both described that the lights seemed to have been continually out of focus of their eyes, and said that it was as if they were viewing this object through wet glass. Roger provided a later statement describing the lights as they followed them for this 15-minute period. He said the following: "My view of it was that it was moving slowly. It wasn't a star, it was bright, and it was white. If you look at glass which has got rain on, it was the same sort of inference. It was a splash. It was just eerie." As Roger and Clifford continued following the craft, according to their witness account, at about 4:23 in the morning, the cross was joined by a second flying object that appeared to join the shape. It was also at this point that a third witness would enter the scene, a man by the name of Mr. Christopher Garner, a local resident of Hatherley, who also began to follow the light while driving down the same road. According to Christopher Garner, he originally believed that he was stuck in some kind of trance as the object passed overhead, unsure of what was real and what wasn't, recounting that the entire experience left him questioning whether or not he was experiencing a nightmare. This nightmare would not last for very long, however, as after the distance of 14 miles were passed, the object would fade away and seem to disappear in an instant, with no sign of the lights or the cross being anywhere nearby. The sighting was believed to have lasted from 4 in the morning to about 5 in the morning. Unfortunately for the men involved, this would not mark the end of this strange and otherworldly incident. Shortly following their sighting, officers Roger and Clifford claimed to have been approached by the British Ministry of Defence for the purpose of an ongoing investigation into the unidentified aircraft phenomenon, as well as warning them about coming forward with their encounter. Roger would later provide the following comment to the BBC national media. "We were visited by a boffin from the Ministry of Defence who told us that we were still officers under the Official Secrets Acts, and they would rather we kept it to ourselves." Fortunately for researchers interested in the unknown, this approach from the British Ministry of Defence would do very little to discourage Officer Roger, Clifford, and motorist Christopher Garner from going to the news media and reporting their encounter. When reports investigated the claims surrounding the strange intimidation tactic taken by the British Ministry of Defence, they would provide the explanation that they were doing their own research into the claims made by the three men and found them to be entirely baseless, providing the additional explanation that the sighting was nothing more than a misidentification of Venus in the sky. This explanation would be put into question, however, as throughout that same month, numerous additional sightings of a flying cross would be seen all throughout the Devon region. Additionally, during the late 2000s, slowly released documents from the British National Archives would tell a different story, when unclassified documents would be uncovered surrounding the Devon flying cross encounter, believing the sighting to have been a genuine mysterious aircraft, directly contradicting the public statement made by the Ministry of Defence during 1967 surrounding the incident. All around the world, there appears to be a number of strange occurrences that seem to create a manipulation in both space and time. These strange occurrences have come to be known as different instances of time travel and time slips in our reality that not only causes unexplainable phenomena to surface, but can change our very perspective on the nature of our world. Various people have shared their own stories of these glitches, and it led to various pages being set up so that people can share their mysterious encounters. Just recently, an interesting video was shared on social media, and since being uploaded, it has gained hundreds of thousands of views. The user who uploaded the footage said that the event was like a glitch in the Matrix, and explained that thousands of birds were flying around in circles. The uploader said that the video was taken in Flatwoods, West Virginia, and that she had never seen this many birds in one area before. Those who saw the video said that the birds looked disorientated. One person said the following: "I've seen this type of behavior before, and it's usually when something has happened nearby. For example, in my case, it was that the birds in my region were allegedly poisoned, and it caused them to act like this." End quote. What's strange is that in the last few years, this isn't the first time that events like these have been reported, and it's caused some to ask why these birds are acting this way. A few months back, several news outlets reported that something was happening to birds in various different countries, noting that they couldn't explain why so many of them were dropping out of the skies. This caused people to come forward on social media and detail their personal stories. Oddly enough, it's not just one species that's being affected. Researchers who have been studying these birds and who have tried to get to the bottom of what's going on have explained that thousands of birds in the eastern United States are falling out of the sky, with some of these events even being captured by onlookers. It's led researchers to suggest that something big is happening right now, but after collecting the data and inspecting these birds up close, scientists have said that they are no closer to understand why this is happening, and said they are worried because it's happening in various places across the world, including England, Wales, Ireland, Australia, Turkey, Egypt, and various other countries. As of right now, the scientists who are looking into this have ruled out some of the most common culprits, but said they can't seem to get to the bottom of what's going on. The mysterious event was first recorded in Virginia and Maryland in May of 2021, but wildlife experts have said that within the last few months, reports are spreading all throughout the country. One scientist from the Hampshire Nature Reserve located in England said the following when asked whether radio frequency radiation could be behind this strange behavior. Yes, radio frequency radiation can affect birds. Radio frequency radiation is a type of non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation that is emitted by wireless communication devices such as cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, and radio and television transmitters. Studies have shown that exposure to radio frequency radiation can affect birds' behavior, physiology, and reproductive success. For example, radio frequency radiation exposure has been linked to changes in birds' migratory behavior, changes in their feeding patterns, and a reduction in their ability to navigate using Earth's magnetic field. Radio frequency radiation exposure has also been shown to affect the reproductive success of birds, including a reduction in the number of eggs laid and a decrease in the survival rate of chicks. End quote. Chelsea Jones, a spokesperson for the Animal Welfare League of Arlington, Virginia, said the following: "In May 2022, we started to realize that something unusual was going on. We have received 300 birds so far, but that is just counting the deceased birds. The real total is much higher." End quote. As of right now, further tests are being conducted in order to get to the bottom of why this keeps happening. Staying on the subject of mysterious events, the USS Eldridge has long caught the attention of those interested in the unknown. Referred to by many as the Philadelphia Experiment, the strange military experiments surrounding that of the United States military, creating an electromagnetic bubble around the large naval vessel known as the USS Eldridge, helped to create one of the strange anomalous properties of our world. Originally designed to create completely radar-invisible ships by bouncing radar waves around the ship. These experiments would go on to create a warped space-time field around the ship and transport it through time and space, ending up in different areas of the world, and even sending 2 men through time in an effort to fix the timeline. Although the stories surrounding the Philadelphia experiment span many different accounts and decades worth of government cover-up and intervention, it eventually led to one of the men sent through time, Ed Cameron, coming into contact with humans of the far future as they were preparing to stop a cataclysmic event that was thought to be able to wipe out all life on the planet. Interestingly enough, despite these events having occurred back in the early 1950s, Ed Cameron would go on to make several startling premonitions about the future, including that of color televisions in the future, and even of future events such as that of hospital conditions, medicine, emerging technologies surrounding hospitals, as well as changes in the political map in the future. The majority of these findings were during his time spent in a hospital after being sent into the future of the late 1980s, and spending a large amount of his time during this period watching television, baffled by the technology of the future. This would later lead to the further written witness accounts of a man by the name of Al Bielek, of whom claimed to have been the reincarnated Ed Cameron, and was able to piece together many of the claims and questions surrounding that of Ed Cameron. He would go on to create a 3-hour-long tell-all video that he would post to YouTube before his passing, in which he not only further explained the science behind the Philadelphia experiment, but went into the strange future sightings of humanity, as well as the terrible cataclysmic event that is believed to occur in the year 2843, that will end all life on our planet as we know it.
A discovered 1.8 billion-year-old nuclear reactor. Back in 1972, when a large amount of uranium ore was mined from the Oklo mine located out in the country of Gabon, a small nation found in Central Africa, scientists began to test the uranium deposits to catalogue the amount of recovered uranium-235 that was gathered from the site and could be used for ongoing efforts of nuclear fission and nuclear reactors. Unfortunately, they quickly realised that a substantial amount of uranium-235 was missing from the ore deposits, as uranium-235 naturally forms a solid concentration of 0.072%, but found a significant amount lacking from the mined minerals. As they investigated the situation, believing that perhaps more than 200 kilograms had been stolen, they quickly realised that located near the mined location was the perfect conditions to form a believed to be naturally forming nuclear reactor that is dated to be roughly 1.8 billion years old. Scientists claim that the uranium ore was used up when a naturally formed cavern using groundwater to help stabilise the nuclear reaction was discovered underground. Theorists, however, have an alternative explanation. Given the fact that the specifications required to form a naturally made nuclear reactor require specific storage of the uranium-235, the continued influx of water and a number of steps to prevent the compounds from becoming superheated, it is believed that the location is not naturally formed and rather the use of a primitive nuclear reactor by time-travelling humans needed to create a substantial amount of energy. Today, the claim is widely debated as one of the key pieces of evidence of time-travelling humans and their influence on the past.
Are shadow people time travelers? Shadow people sound a bit creepy, right? They are defined as supernatural shadow-like humanoid figures that, according to believers, are seen flickering on walls and ceilings in the viewer's peripheral vision. Shadow people are considered as entities of the underworld, but those who have experienced them are not sure whether they are evil, helpful, or just there. Scientists have tried to offer explanations for the phenomena. For example, some researchers conclude that seeing shadow figures are simply symptoms of sleep paralysis or deprivation, and others have noted that drug addicts are more likely to experience these sorts of hallucinations. Alternatively, they can simply be the mind playing tricks on somebody who's experiencing a heightened sense of alert, for example, when you're walking down a dark alley at night.
However, some people are convinced that shadow people are actually apparitions of time travelers. They think that the reason that they are only in shadow form is because we, on Earth, can't clearly see the future and therefore find it hard to see these figures. Instead of being supernatural or devilish creatures, they are actually just people from other dimensions. They also don't seem to be taking any notice of the people that see them, therefore fitting in with the common time travel theme. Often when time traveling, the person experiencing it is not noticed by anybody else. The thing is, this is all heavily disputed, and the scientific explanations are well weighted in their favor. We'll never know for sure if shadow people are time travelers or not, or even real. But one thing is for sure: the human imagination is a powerful thing. Time travel sounds amazing, and if the people we've spoken about today did experience another dimension, then in some ways they are incredibly lucky. Just imagine what we could do for the world if we could access information from the future. We could cure diseases, save the environment, and prevent wars. Time travel is something that everybody has thought about from time to time, and if it is one day developed and isn't just something out of a sci-fi movie, then we reckon that the human race is in for a bewildering experience.
NASA has occasionally used image processing techniques, including image enhancement and color correction, to improve the clarity and visual quality of their photos. This is a common practice in many fields, including scientific research, journalism, and advertising. Interestingly, in recent years, people who have worked for NASA have come forward and opened up about this practice, saying that they were one of the individuals who was tasked with editing these images. As of right now, it's reported that NASA does not airbrush or manipulate their photos to hide evidence of advanced life or other secrets, with the agency saying that NASA is committed to transparency and sharing accurate information about its missions and discoveries. In fact, NASA has made many of its images and data publicly available to the scientific community and the general public. The agency also encourages independent analysis and research of their data and images. With that being said, it hasn't stopped people from coming forward with their stories. One user on social media posted the following story. "My dad was always a secretive man. He's been in the military his whole life and wouldn't really share some of the things he'd witnessed. One of his last jobs was working in an unknown department at NASA. Weeks before he passed away, he started to open up to the family, talking about his experiences in the military and telling us about some of his regrets. One thing he wished was that he spent more time with the family, saying that after years of being loyal to the military and his country, all it's left him with is a small house and a family that he pushed away. A few days after this, he told us that the department he worked in at NASA was a photo lab, and in here it was his job to analyze images that had been taken by NASA instruments. He said the lab had restricted sections which only a few people were allowed to go into, and here they would develop the photographs and start the process of editing. After he answered several of our questions, it turns out that in many of these mosaic photos were strange objects, which he said were unidentified crafts that were interested in many of these missions, especially during the early years of space exploration. He detailed that we wouldn't believe the amount of objects that had to be edited out of these photos and said that it was a full-time job removing them. He said a lot of those who were on these missions talked about their experience and revealed that these crafts following them and said that they would give these objects code names. After this conversation, my dad only touched on the subject a few more times before he would pass away. The whole experience came across as my father's final push to reveal the truth about what he had encountered, and none of what he said came across as disingenuous. He didn't want us to do anything with this information, but according to him, it was a huge relief to finally talk to someone about it. It makes me wonder if this final confession allowed him to be at peace." End quote. Truth is stranger than fiction, and over the years there's been many bizarre accounts that involve the government and mysterious creatures. Being one of the most well-known cryptids ever reported across North America, the Jersey Devil has entered popular folklore and has been referenced in nearly all forms of mainstream media, from books to movies and even in modern video games. What many fans of this ancient creature aren't aware of, however, is that back in the early 1800s, it's believed that the United States government led a clandestine mission to hunt down the Jersey Devil and remove it from the Pine Barrens area located around New Jersey to prevent the creature from wreaking havoc on the nearby communities. According to official reports surrounding the Jersey Devil, one of the oldest reported encounters with the creature centers around a covered-up mission between the United States Navy and United States President James Monroe. According to the reports regarding the incident, back in 1819, United States President James Monroe, curious about the legends of the creature, sent two men, a naval officer, Stephen Decatur, Dr. James Killian, and a small group of men, to investigate the Pine Barrens' claims. By this time, naval officer Stephen Decatur was already a world-renowned captain of the United States Navy, having reached the position at only 25 years of age. Dr. James Killian was a world-renowned naturalist, having published several books on what would later be known as the field of zoology, with a special interest in exotic animals, similar to what would now be considered a cryptozoological fascination. Interestingly enough, a declassified government mission featuring Naval Officer Commodore Steph Decatur, alongside a small team of people, is recorded as having occurred back in 1819, in which the team of men travelled to Pine Barrens to perform a quality check on the iron industry, with the designation to inspect and test some of the privately produced armaments, such as cannonballs. The team was reported by the United States government as having landed at the Burlington County Harbor and investigating the communities of Batstow and Hanover for unknown purposes. The official government report, however, claims that the men experienced nothing out of the ordinary and merely tested some of the equipment and met up with private factories and their managers. However, the truth is that the rest of the story deviates from the government report, claiming that though the men did inspect the armaments and the factories throughout the Pine Barrens region, many of the men seemed more interested in striking up casual conversation about local legends. After alerting the naval men and Dr. James Killian to the legends and sightings of the devil, Officer Decatur decided to set up a temporary residency at a cabin located within the Pine Barrens, where the monster had been recently sighted. Although the details get somewhat hazy, surviving members of Decatur's crew claimed that the men were attacked in the night by the creature, with two men having been eaten by the creature, and Officer Decatur, Dr. James Killian, and a handful of the crewmen having taken down the creature after shooting the beast several times in the body. Before retiring for the nearest community after the attack, Dr. James Killian was reported as having performed a quick animal autopsy on the creature, determining that the beast was a natural inhabitant of the area and not of a supernatural origin. After cutting open the womb of the creature, Dr. James Killian discovered the monster to have been pregnant with several pups of the strange dragon-like monster and theorized that the creature must have a surviving small population within the area that would need to be dealt with. The claims end that Dr. James Killian preserved one of the fetuses of the creature in a jar for further examination and private ownership. The whereabouts of this specimen is still unknown in the modern day. Interestingly enough, the claim that Dr. James Killian made surrounding the creature's design, of it appearing to have been a native dragon-like species, sounds eerily similar to ancient Native American legends local to the region. Native American Indians are known to have inhabited the area for around 13,000 years after the most recent ice age. One of these tribal groups, known as the Lenni-Lenape or Lenape Indians, occupied the lower Hudson River Valley and the Delaware River Valley, along with the lands that reached eastward to the Atlantic Ocean that are now known as the state of New Jersey. The early European settlers referred to the Lenape Indians as the Delaware tribe. During the occupation of the land by the Lenape tribe, they referred to the area around the Delaware River as Popuessing or Place of the Dragon. After the Swedish explorers came, they referred to the Delaware River as Drake Kill, which is a combination of two words meaning Dragon River. In doing more research using old maps, it can be seen that there is a creek just across the Delaware River in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area called Popuessing Creek, which is a tributary to the Delaware River. Within the same area is a place called Drake Kylan, which translates into French as La Rivière des Dragons, or the River of Dragons. Given Dr. James Killian findings and his recommendation that the native dragon-like species must be dealt with to prevent future attacks, given their rate of having offspring and the growing availability of livestock and cattle throughout the region, it appears that the natural dragon theory is proving far more viable than existing early colonial legends. Although there was no evidence that the United States government would perform any actions at the time, roughly 20 years later, reports of the monster would change how it was perceived. According to the Pine Barrens Museum, during the summer of 1840, the communities surrounding the Pine Barrens forest suffered from mass sightings of the Jersey Devil, then known as the Leeds devil creature, with claims that more than one Jersey Devil was prowling through their communities and attacking their children and livestock. During the year, record sightings of the creature were made, with reports of farms having been completely destroyed by the creature, as chickens, goats, cows, and horses were described as having been seemingly mauled by a large animal or suffering from wounds that appeared as if the livestock animals had been dropped from a terrible height. The sightings and attacks would continue until 1841, with a sudden religious hysteria taking over the surrounding communities, as residents local to the area were desperate to find any means to stop the sightings of the creatures, either through spiritual protection or through physical protection. However, relief would suddenly come during the year, as sightings of the creature slowly died down and normalcy resumed by the winter months. The cause for the disappearance of the Jersey Devil sightings is unknown, though several theories have spawned claiming that the United States government was responsible for the hunting and eradication of the creature or creatures. Every single passing day, a variety of many different people from across the world make predictions about the future of humankind in an attempt to better understand and combat changing industries, personal obstacles, and tragic events that may spell out doom for the rest of us. These predictions could come from self-proclaimed psychics, emerging technologies in artificial intelligence, investors looking to predict future decisions and impacts on the economy, or government research to provide intelligence relative to policy impact and decision-making. But shortly before he passed away, world-renowned research scientist Dr. Stephen Hawking had some predictions of his own. The most surprising of Dr. Stephen Hawking's predictions was his sudden transparency before his passing relative to alien intervention. In fact, the late research scientist claimed that alien contact would most likely occur within the next century, if it has not already. He further goes on to warn us about the potential disaster of trusting an alien species, and explains that not only should we remain vigilant, but that an advanced race would have ulterior motives that may be unpredictable on the short-term scale, given their technological development and superior intellect. Claiming further that any intelligent alien species could not ever be fully trusted. This is an interesting prediction, and may very well be the case over this next century, as developments in spacefaring technologies are being worked on and made along with the fact that new reports of alien technologies keep surfacing. The Disclosure Project has already been responsible for the disclosure of a massive amount of government documents tied to alien investigations. This has caused amateur researchers to suggest that within the next few decades, more and more of these documents will come to light, proving that certain establishments know more than what they're letting on.